Neela Sharanam, Neela Mama Sharanam, Sharanam, Shri Aurobindo Sharanam.
Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, offering is the placing of your entire being with all its moments, true and false, good and bad, right and wrong, before the Divine for transformation. With always our love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Book 6, The Book of Fate, Canto 2, The Way of Fate and the Problem of Pain, page 439. This is the ransom of our high estate, the sign and stamp of our humanity. A grisly company of maladies, come, licensed lodgers into man's bodily house, purveyors of death and torturers of life. In the malignant hollows of the world, in its subconscient cavern passages, ambush they lie, waiting their hour to leap, surrounding with danger the seized city of life. Admitted into the citadel of man's days, they mine his force and maim or suddenly kill. Ourselves within us, lethal forces nurse. We make of our own enemies our guests. Out of their holes like bees, they creep and gnaw the chords of the divine musician's lyre, till frayed and thin, the music dies away, or crashing snaps with a last tragic note. All that we are is like a fort, be said. All that we strive to be alters like a dream in the grey sleep of matter's ignorance. Mind suffers, linked by the world's disharmony and the unloneliness of human things. A treasure misspent or cheaply, fruitlessly sold in the bazaar of a blind destiny, a gift of priceless value from time's gods, lost or mislaid in an uncaring world. Life is a marvel missed, an art gone wry. A seeker in a dark and obscure place, an ill-armed warrior facing dreadful odds, an imperfect worker given a baffling task, an ignorant judge of problems, ignorance made, its heavenward flights reach closed and keyless gates, its glorious outbursts peter out in mire. On nature's gifts to man, a curse was laid. All walks inarmed by its own opposites. Error is the comrade of our mortal thought, and falsehood lurks in the deep bosom of truth. Sin poisons with its vivid flowers of joy, or leaves a red scar burnt across the soul. Virtue is a grey bondage and a gall. At every step is laid for us a snare. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo taken from the compilations of our works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo book, Looking from Within, section 4, Ordeals and Difficulties. First, difficulties across the path. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, there cannot be any high endeavor, least of all in the spiritual field, which does not raise or encounter grave obstacles of a very persistent character. These are both internal and external, and although in the large they are fundamentally the same for all, there may be a great difference in the distribution of their stress or the outward form they take. I'm not sure Aurobindo says integral yoga has always its difficulties. Yoga, whatever yoga it is, moreover, it acts in a different way on different seekers. Some have to overcome the difficulties of their nature first before they get any experiences to speak of. Others get a splendid beginning and all difficulties afterwards. Others go on for a long time, having alternate risings to the top of the wave, then a descent into the gulfs, and so on, till the difficulty is worked out. Others have a smooth path, which does not mean that they have no difficulties. They have plenty, but they do not care a straw for them because they feel that the divine will help them to the goal, or that He is with them even when they do not feel Him. Their faith makes them imperturbable. Allah Sri Aurobindo says, there is always something that either carries us on or forces us on. This may take the shape of something conscious in front, the shape of a mastering spiritual idea, indestructible aspiration, or fixed faith, which may seem sometimes entirely veiled or even destroyed in periods of darkness or violent upheaval, but always they reappear when the storm has passed or the blackness of night has thinned, and reassert their influence. But also, it may be something in the very essence of being deeper than any idea or will in the mind, deeper and more permanent than the heart's aspiration, but hidden from one's own observation. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, one who is moved to yoga by some curiosity of the mind or even by its desire for knowledge can turn aside from the path from disappointment or any other cause. Still more can those who take it up from some inner ambition or vital desire turn away through revolt or frustration or the despondency of frequent check and failure. But if this deeper thing is there, then one cannot permanently leave the path of spiritual endeavor. One may decide to leave the path but is not allowed from within to do it, or may leave but is obliged to return to it by the secret spiritual need within them. All these things are common to every path of yoga. They are the normal difficulties, fluctuations, and struggles which comes across the path of spiritual effort. Second, difficulties are help for realization. Our Divine Mother says difficulties are sent to us exclusively to make the realization more perfect. Each time we try to realize something and meet with a resistance or an obstacle or even a failure, what seems to be a failure, we should never forget that it is exclusively, absolutely, so that the realization may be more perfect. So this habit of clinging, of getting discouraged, or even feeling uncomfortable, or of abusing yourself and telling yourself, there again, I have made a mistake, all that is an absolute foolishness. Our Divine Mother says, simply tell yourself, we do not know how to do things as they ought to be done. Well, they are being done for us, come what may. And if we could see to what extent all that seems to be, yes, a difficulty, a mistake, a failure, an obstacle, all that is just to help us so that the realization may be more perfect. Once you know that, everything becomes easy, says our Divine Mother. Shocks and trials, says our Divine Mother, always comes as a divine grace to show us the points in our being where we fall short, and in the moments in which we turn our back on our soul by listening to the clamor of our mental being and vital being. If we know how to accept these spiritual blows with due humility, we are sure to cover a great distance at a single bound. Our Divine Mother says, be absolutely convinced that everything that happens in order to give us precisely the lesson we needed. And if we are sincere in the sadhana, the lesson should be accepted with joy and gratitude. For one who aspires to the divine life, what can the actions of a blind and ignorant humanity matter to him? Our Divine Mother says difficulties are always blessings if we know how to face them. Question, sweet Mother, with the touch of the Divine grace, how do difficulties become opportunities for progress? For this, our Divine Mother says, well, this is something quite obvious. You made a big mistake and you are in a great difficulty. Then, if you have faith, if you have trust in the Divine grace, if you really rely on it, you will suddenly realize that it is a lesson, that your difficulty or mistake is nothing else but a lesson, and it comes to teach you to find within yourself what needs to be changed. And with this help of the Divine grace, you will discover in yourself what has to be changed, and you will change it. And so, from a difficulty, you will have made great progress. Take a considerable leap forward. This indeed happens all the time. Only you must be truly sincere, that is, rely on the Divine grace alone and let it work on you. Not like this one part of you asking for the help and another resisting as much as it can because it does not want the change. Our Divine Mother says that difficulties are for the strong and help to make them stronger. Persevere and you will conquer. Difficulties come because there are possibilities in you. In life, everything was easy, then it would be a life of nothing. Because difficulties come on your way, it shows you have possibilities. For the aspirant and the sadhak, all that comes in his life comes to help him know the truth and to live it. The difficulties comes always to make us progress. The difficulty, the greater the difficulty, the greater can be the progress. Third, difficulties of the character. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the difficulties of the character persist so long as one yields to them in action when they rise. One has to make a strict rule not to act according to the impulses of anger, ego, or whatever the weakness may be that one wants to get rid of. Or, if one does act in the argument of the moment, not to justify or persist in the action. If one does that, after a time the difficulty abates or is confined purely to the subjective moment which can observe, detach oneself from and combat it. Seekers are always told if you want to get rid of something, say that is it is outside, This is only an impression, but it is easier to get rid of a difficulty if you have the impression that it is outside you. What is inside is also outside, and what is outside is also inside. The secret lies in knowing how to place it just where it is most convenient for the immediate action. If you have a serious difficulty in your character, for example, the habit of losing your temper, you decide I must not get angry again, it is very difficult. But if, on the other hand, you tell yourself, anger is something which circulates through the whole world, it is not in me, it belongs to everybody, it wanders about here and there, and if I close my door, it will not enter. It is much more easier. If you think it is my character, I'm born like that, it becomes more impossible. It is true there is something in your character which answers to this force of anger. All moments, all vibrations are general. They enter and they go out, they move about, but they rush upon you and enter into you only to the extent you leave the door open in you, open always. And if you have, besides, some affinity with these forces, you may get angry without even knowing why, says our Divine Mother. Fourth, universal adverse forces. Our Lord Aurobindo says, the prolongation of a difficulty and its acuteness comes from the fact that there are forces in nature, not personal or individual but universal, which live upon these moments and throw them and have a long control over the individual nature. These do not want to lose their rules, so when these moments are thrown out, they are thrown them back on the sadhak in strong waves or with great violence. Or they create in the vital a greater depression, discouragement, despair, and that is their favorite weapon. Because it is losing its former field of desires and has not yet in any certainly something that would replace it, the assured continuous psychic or the spiritual conditions on experience, to prevent that is the whole effort of these forces. So they create these upheavals and the vital admits them because of its own habit of response to the lower forces. At the same time, they put in suggestions to the mind so as to make it also accept the disturbance, discouragement, and depression. This is what I meant by saying that these are attacks from outside and must be rejected. If they cannot be rejected altogether, one must try to keep a part of the mind which is conscious, which will refuse to admit the suggestions or share in the depression, the trouble, which will say firmly, I know what this is, and I know that this will pass, and I can resume my way to the goal, which nothing can prevent me from reaching, since my soul's will is and will always be for that. Then you will have the power to reach the point where you can do always better, than the power of the forces to disturb you will begin to diminish and slowly vanish, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Prayers and Meditations, April 13, 1914, Karaikal. Everything works together to prevent me from remaining a creature of habits. And in this new state, in the midst of these circumstances, so complex and unstable, I have never before so completely lived thy immutable peace, or rather, the I has never before disappeared so completely that thy divine peace alone is alive there. All is beautiful, harmonious, and calm. All is full of thee. Thou shinest in the dazzling sun. Thou art felt in the gentle passing breeze. Thou dost manifest thyself in all hearts and live in all beings. There is not an animal, a plant that does not speak to me of thee, and thy name is written upon everything to see. O my sweet Lord, hast thou at last granted that I may belong entirely to thee, and that my consciousness may be definitely united with thine? What have I done to be worthy of so glorious a happiness? Nothing except to desire it, to want it with constancy. That is very little. But, O Lord, since now it is thy will and not mine that lives in me, thou wilt be able to make this happiness profitable to all, and its very purpose will be to enable the greatest possible number of beings to perceive thee. Oh, may all know thee, love thee, serve thee, may all receive the supreme consecration. O love, divine love, spread abroad in the world, regenerate life, enlighten the intelligence, break the barriers of egoism, scatter the obstacles of ignorance, shine resplendent as sovereign master of the earth.